Today on the 01581 Let's Talk, a conversation with Senator Michael Moore and our town manager, Christy Williams. I'm joined by today's guest and a regular monthly guest, Senator Michael Moore. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to see you again.
Great to see you. Great to see you. Happy almost Thanksgiving. We're taping this on the day before.
Likewise.
Yeah, you have plans, I hope? Cooking?
No cooking, just eating.
Eating. All right. Well, there you go. All right.
The best part of it all, I guess.
It is. It is. Well, and before we think about kind of putting our comfortable clothes on and, elastic pants so you can eat and all that stuff, you've got lots going on in the Senate and your work. So we've got a couple things to talk about today. So the PACT 3.0, which is a recent bill passed by the Senate with the idea of creating transparency in pharmaceutical pricing and lowering costs. So tell our viewers a little bit about that.
Well, so the PACT Act is actually called an Act Relative to Pharmaceutical Access, Costs, and Transparency. That's where we get the PAC.
Love acronyms.
Yes, yeah. Every major bill has to have one.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's catchy.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm trying to think, even some other industry, like when I get involved in the cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there
are so many that you got to learn. What this bill would do, it would limit out-of-pocket spending for prescription drugs to treat diabetes, asthma, chronic heart conditions, zero copays for generic drugs, $25 copays for a 30-day supply of one brand name drug per condition, requires pharmacies to offer patients the lowest possible price, even if the lower price is purchased without the drug without insurance.
Yep.
Expands access to all pharmacies by allowing independent pharmacists to get licensed to dispense specialty medications, directs the Health Policy Commission to establish a process identifying high drug prices for essential medicines, and allows the Health Policy Commission to recommend pricing measures to increase patient access to necessary medications. Manufacturers who fail to comply with the process will be required to pay a fee to a trust fund that will pay for drug cost assistance. Requires the drug manufacturers to notify the state in advance of major price increases on existing drugs or when new drugs are going to be introduced. It also allows Mass Health to better prepare to negotiate or mitigate costs. And the pharmacy benefit managers, this is the middleman between the drug manufacturers and pharmacies, will be subject to oversight and licensing by the Division of Insurance, which PBMs were established, I'll say 15 years ago, 16 years ago. And the original concept was having them in the middle, having them as a middleman, as a negotiator would help bring down some of the costs. But it really hasn't worked out that way. So we're looking at not throwing out the system, but we're actually looking at a way to trying to, license them and actually get better oversight in what their operations are or how they negotiate the prices.
Sure. So the Senate passed this?
Yes.
And where does the House stand on it right now, to your knowledge?
Oh, to my knowledge, we don't know right now.
Okay.
I can tell you this legislation was passed by the Senate last session, and it was never taken up. So
it should be really PACT 4.0 or no?
Yeah, maybe. Let's just hope not. So we did this bill Tuesday or Wednesday, and the House did a piece of legislation on long-term elder care. So hopefully maybe
those two can
this will be
converge.
the quid pro quo, where we do theirs, they'll do ours.
Okay.
But that's usually how any major piece of legislation. Each branch tries to prioritize something they want.
Well, depending upon what that bill is, I'll have to look into that. That's interesting. There seems to be potentially some natural alliance there in those interests.
Oh, that's actually a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
So, well, it'd be interesting. So, if this moves forward, I have some questions, and maybe in a future session when we get together. be interested to understand how the pact would impact commercially insured individuals, so those insured through an employer or
Right.
through the exchange as independent individuals, versus those who are Mass Health or dual eligible Mass Health Medicare. So it'd be interesting to kind of see how this actually plays out.
So hopefully, the fact that we have the Health Policy Commission involved in this, those are the areas that they can.
And the
say
DOI
massage
too,
and-
right?
And the
Because-
and the
yep.
Division of Insurance,
Yep,
that
yep.
they can help work out and as
Sure.
the system gets integrated.
Yep.
But, so a lot of times when the legislation, you'll see the legislature will pass the framework for it.
Yeah, and then the implementation is.
Then the implementation
the
and the
devil in the
specific,
details.
yes.
Yep.
When we leave it up to the regulatory agency.
Yeah, no, understand, yeah.
But
yeah,
if they,
yeah.
a lot of times I think the public thinks that, oh, we pass everything's
Right.
very prescriptive.
Yep.
It's really not, because we have to allow for the flexibility.
Yeah, no, and that makes
So-
perfect sense, right, right. And how, just give a sense, so if the House were to take this up and they were to pass it, in whatever time frame they were to pass it, how long does something like this take to implement? Like
Could
based
be-
on past experience?
I'd have to look to see if there's a definitive date
Okay.
in there, but it could take 6 months, it could take a year. Sometimes we have we have a 2-year
Okay.
implementation period.
Okay, it just depends on how the legislation is actually written.
Yes, and
Okay.
it depends on how comprehensive we think the work's going to be to make the changes.
Sure, okay, okay. And for individuals that want to follow this, they would be following the Act relative to pharmaceutical access, costs, and transparency, otherwise known as PACT Act 3.0.
Yes.
And is there a lead senator or Senate?
Yes, Senator Cindy Friedman.
Friedman. Okay, okay,
So now the time frame is, so as of last Wednesday, we broke from formal sessions.
okay.
So we can still have informal sessions
Okay.
between now and the time we go back January, the first Wednesday in January.
Mm-hmm.
So we can still get legislation passed during informal sessions. The only difference is during an informal session, one person can hold up the whole process. If one person objects, the bill dies. So this is where it makes it much more difficult.
Got it. Versus having a simple majority?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
okay,
so this bill has until December 31st of 2024 to pass.
okay.
But in reality, if the House doesn't do something by, pass something by July 31st, then
2020.
2024,
4, right.
then you're not going to see anything happen. So we'll have bills, 'cause that's when we end formal session
Sure.
for this
Understood.
legislative
Yeah.
session.
It's too big to pass in informal, it
Well,
seems,
but
you know.
it all depends. That's where I was going. That last 6 months,
Yeah.
if they pass something that's similar to ours, but maybe a little different, then that can be worked out.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
And
okay.
then something like that then can be passed
Okay.
in informal session.
Okay.
But if they're
Yeah, wildly.
yeah, then that's where you won't see anything happen.
Understood, understood. So for folks that are interested in this, they could certainly reach out to their House representative,
Yes.
express interest in understanding the representative's view, and certainly advocating if they feel necessary to.
Yeah, just reach out to your
Yeah.
state rep, your state senator. Most likely, your state senator is going to have more information on the bill.
Right.
The House, the rep is not going. It's good to send them an email saying, "Look, we support
Sure.
the bill." Then they might go and start looking at researching the bill.
Right.
But most likely, because they don't know until the speaker sets what their agenda is.
Right, right.
A lot of times, we're not going to look at a bill the House sends over until we know where they're going to start
Right.
addressing it.
Right, right. Well, at least worth the conversation to
Yes,
understand,
yeah.
and certainly understand the process if folks are interested. And yeah, well, this is a big one. I mean, drug costs continue to go up, and as new drugs come out, they create hopeful outcomes, but they're also very expensive.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
so that would be interesting to see that. And just one more question on this. So, as part of the Senate's process, do you bring in or offer opportunity for comment from PBMs, from insurers? Was that part of it? I'm thinking of when I came to testify
Yeah.
on the
So
cable access.
they have the right to come in to
Mm-hmm.
testify at the public hearings, and also committees or the committees handling having the jurisdiction of the legislation will usually reach out to
Yep.
entities that they have questions for.
Okay.
Or entities will reach out even
Sure.
outside the hearing process
Yep.
to help weigh in.
Okay.
But majority of times when you have a very comprehensive bill like this, most of the time the committee members or the sponsor
Yep.
of the legislation has reached out to the stakeholders.
Okay.
To try to get
Sure.
the good and bad.
Makes sense, right. Okay, all right, great, good to know. Okay, so moving on to emergency shelter status, that's been a hot topic, obviously, across the Commonwealth, certainly here in Massachusetts, here in Westboro.
Yep.
We've talked about this several times, when you've been on as a guest. As of Friday, November 17th, just over 7,505 families are being housed in the emergency shelter system.
Yep.
There's a cap now. Can you talk a little bit about the cap on the shelter system? That hit
Well,
the news. That was kind of big news.
Yeah.
That there's going to be this cap, but no one really kind of knows what does that really mean.
So the administration, and I don't know if people were following the court case, the administration filed the cap, that they were going to institute a cap, because we still have that legislation, that the right to shelter legislation. So, but they were determining that we had max capacity at 7,500.
Yep.
We had advocates for housing, filed a suit against the Commonwealth, tried to get an injunction from the administration implementing the cap.
Yep.
The administration, the court, supported the administration's position and allowing them to set the cap. So now the cap's in place. The administration is anyone coming in, they will get temporary housing for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then they're supposed to, during that time frame, try to arrange getting
Other
means, other housing. Now the problem we're going to have is obviously if they can't get the housing, then where do we go?
Right.
And then where do they go? Do they go on the street?
Right.
So this is the dilemma we're having right now with the supplemental budget that was just passed. The Senate passed a version, the House passed a version. One of the major differences is that the House wants the administration to already have a emergency shelter set up for after 30 days, where the funding that we are passing and the funding that the Senate supported doesn't have a mandate. We just give the money and the administration the flexibility
Right.
to address the issues as they come
Yeah,
up.
as they flow and,
Right.
and yeah, as they see fit. Wow. From your seat, from your lens, have you seen a compression or minimization of the number of families coming to Massachusetts since, sort of what I feel like was the peak of several months ago? Or is that just, or is the flow still steady, I guess?
No, from my understanding, the flow is still steady. We actually, I think people, again, this is November 20, what's today's date?
Today is the 22nd.
22nd.
Yeah.
In yesterday's paper, the news media was covering that the state has now started utilizing the Department of Transportation building on 10 Park Plaza for housing. So they had some commercial space or
Okay.
office space in there that they're now utilizing. So the pace is continuing. There's been talk, or there's been some initiative to try to change amend the right to shelter law. One of the proposals in the sub-budget last week was we had a legislator a senator that wanted to change it from that you had to be here. He had 3 different amendments filed: 30 days, 60 days, 30 days, 6 months, and then a year.
Before you be eligible for
Before you be
emergency.
right,
Yep.
if you weren't a citizen, if you weren't a resident of Massachusetts.
Well, I think
In all honesty, I don't know what that would have accomplished. It would have caused more people on the streets and put more burden on the municipalities, because now if they're coming in and the state is not helping to coordinate where they're going to go, where are they going to go? Are they going to go to the streets of Boston? Or are they going to get someone that's going to drive them? Are they going to get?
Yeah,
So,
yes, agree. And I'm wondering if that was to be passed and it was known that there was not as supported an environment,
That would-
looking forward, not looking back.
Right.
I would never suggest displacing people that are already here. And I mean, they are here. But looking ahead, would that deter people from, saying, okay, I'm not going to be eligible for services, shelter, and anything else that comes along with that?
So the question we have,
I don't know.
And I'm just going
Yeah,
to say the same thing. What we don't know is, even if we were to change the law, just erase that law,
Yep.
we don't know if we're still going to see the migrants coming into the state.
Oh, sure.
So if that's the
Sure.
case, and or even if we confine it just to, you got to be a resident for 1 year, if we still have the migrants
Mm-hmm.
coming in, okay, it's not like we can have security right at the airport. and
Well, or all of our borders,
Right,
right? How many?
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. What do we have? 6 states that border Massachusetts,
Yeah.
roughly. I don't know. Quick, I'm going around New England, right?
yeah.
I mean, so who knows, right? I mean, you're right. We're not going to erect fences around
Yeah, so
Massachusetts.
so that's the
but-
problem we have. So
Right. And at this point, there's been no assistance from the federal
no,
government.
none at all.
And nothing on the kind of the Work Relief Act. I think
No.
that Governor Healy was talking to the administration about. Okay.
So yeah, there's been nothing there.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of, we're really, it's one of those issues that, and I hate to kind of throw the ball onto someone else, but it's really a federal issue. This is an immigration issue.
oh,
that-
it's very much
that-
a federal
that
issue.
we're
There's
all
no
that we're all
question.
tied to trying to address.
Right.
And I think we all saw that
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't even elect us. How long did it take them to in Congress? How long did it
Right.
take them to elect the Speaker of the House?
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're in a situation right now where we've got a dysfunctional Congress that can't get anything.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We just barely averted a shutdown.
Sure. Yep.
And now we have all these immigration issues that, look, and all we're saying is give us some resources.
Right. Right.
And we can't get that.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that they're, I am not knowledgeable enough about the controls that do or don't exist in our borders. And when I say our borders, I don't just mean southern borders, I mean airport borders and immigration and all of that. So I think we, and the public, it would be, I feel like we all need a primer on what is that process, right, to understand that. So if someone is coming here, I'm not asking you on this,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just
yeah.
sort of pontificating here that, so someone who shows up at the airport and they have, they have their paperwork that says, I'm this person and I'm coming from here, and they're allowed to enter into the United States, then what? Because
So-
to me, once you're here, it's how do you, I don't know, you're here.
Yeah. You're
Getting
here.
out of here
And
is.
you have to remember, the people that are coming here have been classified under the asylum clause. So
Many
which
of
me-
it, yes,
Yeah, so,
yep.
so which means they are legally here until they have a hearing.
Until they have a hearing.
The hearing can take up to 2 years
Yeah.
to take place.
Yes,
So
yep.
it's not like we're catching someone someone's being caught being smuggled aboard a boat coming into Boston Harbor.
Right,
These are
right.
people that have gone through an initial
Right.
screening.
Right.
They've determined they've had the legal
But there's
classification.
no plan for them. So
Right.
there's such a
So-
disconnect, right? So and what little I understand about the asylum process, you're exactly right. And they're here and they can't work for, I forget if it's
12
9 months.
12
Okay,
months.
12 months. So that's the federal piece of it,
Right.
right? The allowing the work. And then it's like they're here, but they have no means of supporting themselves. Like,
Yeah. So in here,
I mean, there's
so this,
such-
and this is the dilemma we're having. So
it's so frustrating,
I shouldn't say
and it's
just
frustrating
this.
for them. I mean, I am empathetic to their plight of. I mean, in many cases, they've been trying for years to get here. This isn't one like I just hopped on a plane and I'm coming to the United States. I mean, there's a very long process to even get to that place.
And there is, and people can say, "Oh, well, just stop them from coming." But if you're coming from an area where you feel like your families and
Yeah.
their lives are
Yeah.
in danger or threatened,
Sure.
or the living conditions are that bad, are you really going to wait? I mean,
No,
but
you're going to do
so-
everything you can to protect your children, protect your family, yeah, to get out of harm's way.
So you come here and they're classified under this system, but in relation to us, there's not one business. Look, this is the short-term pain, and if the federal government could change the work
Sure.
clause, then that would be
It'd be huge.
it would be huge. Now, every sector, this is the long-term benefit of what we could experience. Every sector has reached out to the legislature and talking about a shortage of workers.
Yeah. Yep.
And here we have people coming in that want to work.
Yeah.
And because the federal government
Yeah.
won't or can't come to some sort of resolution to help us,
Right.
I mean, we've got a workforce that we can train
Yeah.
that can fill all these jobs
Sure.
that all our employees are looking
Sure.
for, which is going to help our overall economy in Massachusetts.
Absolutely, and Massachusetts is not alone in this. I
No.
mean, there are farms that need this work. There are other industries, and you know, as we want to rebuild manufacturing in the rebuild
Yes.
manufacturing. I mean, there's so much opportunity. It is
you-
incredibly short-sighted to not be able to connect the pieces of this problem and.
I mean, even jobs that I might say the skill set is not that comprehensive,
Sure.
but it is in its own way. But you've got hotels that need
Yep.
janitor staff. You've got restaurants that need waiters. We've got retail stores that need people. I mean, so
Well, we were just talking about elder care, right?
Yes.
Elder care, I mean, you know, I mean, if you look on LinkedIn any given day, I mean, the number of clinical individuals or non-clinical, but people that have,
Yeah.
I mean, it's everywhere.
So this is where we've got it. We've got a workforce waiting. But again, this is where the state's kind of caught in between.
Yep.
That all right, we're following the law. You're sending people here
Sure.
who are in asylum, but now,
Right.
but you're not giving us the resources.
Right. And I think it would be helpful. I'm not asking you to do this, but it just be helpful. You know, I think I just don't think that generally speaking, Americans understand the different terms around immigration. What is asylum? Who's not coming? What are those numbers? What does it really mean? And because it is not practical in this global economy for us to lock down our borders. I'm sorry. Like we can build as many walls as we want, and I'm not necessarily against physical border protection, but we're still going to have immigration, and we need immigration.
Yes.
So the fact that we are being passive and just letting immigration sort of run us, as opposed to us tapping into the benefits of that, is just blows my mind.
So
Just-
look, and I agree
I get off
with
my
you.
soapbox. I
Yeah,
gotta
no,
sip
no,
of
but I
water.
actually agree with you in the majority of that. Look, I'm not going to say don't build a wall,
Yep.
but I am going to say don't build a wall and think that's going to solve the problem.
Exactly.
If you want to build a wall for physical structure, okay,
Yep.
but you got to realize people are going to build tunnels underneath it.
Yep.
They're going to come in other ports of entry.
Yep.
There's also ways of utilizing technology for the border.
Sure.
But the main thing is that we got to address is the system is overwhelmed. Immigration could hire another 10,000 employees,
Yep.
and the whole system that they use, all the laws need to be reviewed,
Yep.
changed. And so if we actually want a successful immigration reform, we got to look at every aspect of it.
Yep.
We can't just look at one.
Yep.
We can't just think, oh, we're going to build a wall and that's going to stop them.
Yep.
Because it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, let's transition a little
Yes.
bit here in the few minutes we have remaining. So, in sort of related, there was a housing bond bill that
Yes.
has recently been passed. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the administration, this was long awaited. So bond bills usually run about 5 years, so the last one was about 5 years ago.
Okay.
So with the new administration coming in, this is really their chance to put their stamp on what they want to do. So the bond bill was passed, was filed.
Yep.
So just so people understand the
Yeah,
little
okay.
process.
Okay,
The Constitution.
that thing.
Yes. The state one, not the federal.
Yeah, yeah.
Money bills have to originate in the House.
Okay,
So getting back to the supplemental budget.
Yep.
That's why the subs have to start in the House. Tax increases or tax reductions start in the House. A bond bill, it's not a money bill,
okay,
so it can start in either branch.
Okay.
But, so a bond bill, basically the way a bond bill works is that it's filed, it could be, the value of it could be $3 billion.
okay,
Or say $1 billion.
Yep.
But you may see $3 billion worth of projects in the bond bill.
okay,
And many times that's because you will have projects that are on the books to be done, or trying to be done
Yep.
in a certain, across the state,
Yep.
or in a legislator's area.
sure,
So you try to get those included in the bond bill.
okay,
And if it does get included in the bond bill,
Mm-hmm.
you then have to, even after the governor signs the bill, you then have to go back to the administration and say, look, here's the project.
okay,
Will you release the funding to support it?
okay.
Now, there are projects in the bond bill that municipalities or the state
Mm-hmm.
will have in there that never end up getting done
Okay.
because there could be something that comes up in the project that stops it. So that's where having the surplus projects
Okay,
in
okay,
there.
okay.
So, okay, we can't do yours.
Yep,
All right, now we have it up, well, this isn't here, so let's utilize the funding for this project.
understood, okay,
So,
okay, okay,
so the bond bill will preserve and rehabilitate, they're looking at improvements to 12,000 low-income homes that are supported by more than 11,000 moderate-income households. And the fund accessibility improvements for 4,500 homes, 1.6 billion to repair and modernize state-run public housing units, 800 million for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that allows governments and nonprofits and developers to build and preserve affordable housing. That's an increased funding
Yeah,
of
doubling,
400 million.
yep.
So that's actually, if you, just to put in a term that most people hear, they hear 40B.
yeah, yeah.
So 40B is the affordable housing. It's not low-income housing.
Sure,
It's not Section 8.
sure,
But people, a lot of times when people hear 40B, they're thinking of the more extreme types of financial
Yep.
situations. 425 million for housing stabilization and investment fund to preserve in new construction and rehabilitation projects. 275 million to support innovative solutions to the housing crisis, including conversions of offices and commercial space to homes. $200 million for alternative forms of rental housing, including single-person occupancy units, transitional housing for homeless individuals, housing for seniors, 175 million for housing works infrastructure, the program to encourage denser housing development, 50 million seed money for the Momentum Fund, a new fund aimed at helping spur development that has been approved. And so this is a new concept. Well, it's a new but old concept. Allows municipalities the option to implement a real estate transfer tax of between 0.5% and 2% on property sold for more than $1 million or the county's median home sales price, whichever is higher. This also allows for accessory dwelling units of less than 900 square feet to be built. This is a zoning issue. It's a by right classification. Tenants would be able to petition the courts to seal a record of no-fault evictions and non-payments. Fault evictions would be eligible to be sealed after 7 years. So just to go back, just so the single family, the accessory dwelling units.
Yep.
So basically, right now we have some municipalities, communities that you need to get that don't allow accessory
ADUs, yep.
ADUs. If you want to get them, you can still get one in those communities. You just need to get a waiver.
Yep,
So by making it a by right classification, you don't have to go through that
Sure.
that appeal
Sure.
process in the waiver. So that's
And-
so
and
that's a
Westboro,
local zone.
We do allow them here. I don't know the specific zoning language, but there is, I think that there's, it has to be connected to an existing building, have its
Right.
own entrance, et cetera. But I do think that there's some opportunity, and I believe there's been some discussions within sort of the planning kind of community around, could that be different? So could you have a single family and have a detached ADU?
Okay.
You know, so let's say you had a detached garage, right, and you build an ADU above it, right?
Yeah.
So, or you just want to have a separate structure within setbacks and what have you. So I think that while we have ADUs and that they're, I know that being a member of the senior needs work group implementation plan, this is an area that we talked about getting a more full inventory of, you know, because there are, I'm going to say sort of formal ADUs, I think that are sort of on the books and have gone through, you know, some sort of process and permitting through the building department.
Okay.
And there are probably others that are just sort of out there, but we don't know about them for whatever reason. So I think here in Westboro, getting an inventory of those would be helpful, I think, for planning purposes and working with the Affordable Housing Trust, et cetera. But potentially looking at, are there other ways in which we could help our existing zoning to create more flexibility
Right.
in creating ADUs?
So there are some communities I know for the ADUs that they may allow an ADU, but you can't have, the ADU can't be where you have a kitchen and other types of appliances or accessories in there that you could live alone. Because if it's supposed to be,
Yeah,
if they want it to be if a family member,
Sure.
well, then the family member's part of the house. Yeah, you can have a separate bedroom, you can have
Yeah,
a separate
yeah,
certain
yeah,
a living room and all
yeah.
that. But this actually,
Yeah.
really, I think to me I always found it kind of ironic that the fact that we would have a law on the books, or laws on the books that wouldn't allow family members
Yep,
to be able to
Sure.
expand their property or their home
sure.
to allow a parent
Sure,
or
sure,
another family
sure,
member to
yeah.
live there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that there's great opportunity. I think we've seen this in other communities across the United States that have, I'll call it creative zoning, and, you know, it allows families, whether for families to bring in their family or to have a rental property,
Right.
to help them, you know, kind of with their
But
taxes.
see, I think that's what some communities are trying to get.
Oh, I know.
They
No,
don't
no,
want
no.
they don't want someone building a multifamily and
Right.
they expanding their property
Right.
where it's now so
Right.
the reason that one community I just referenced is
Sure.
the reason they have the restrictions on what's in the ADU is so someone doesn't do that after the family member may pass on or
Sure,
leave.
sure.
Now they've got a vacant place and they want to rent it.
Yeah.
So they're trying to avoid multifamilies and
But
residential.
yet, we have a housing crisis.
I agree. I agree.
Right? So
Yep.
we, you know, again, we've got to, and again, I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm live in a butterfly kind of world. I feel like you can do zoning that kind of addresses a need without sort of opening the barn doors for anything. But anyway.
So the other thing on the transfer tax, so basically for several years now, we've had
yeah.
that transfer tax, there's been transfer tax legislation that's been filed as a home rule.
Okay.
That means it comes from the
Yep.
local town.
Yep.
I think it was Nantucket.
Yes, it was.
So
I believe so.
over
Yep.
the years, and
Yep.
it's never really, it's never passed. So this is so I was actually kind of surprised to see the administration put this in there. Now I agree that it's they've got $1 million value, or the county's median home value price,
Yeah.
whichever's higher.
Yeah.
But this is right now we're dealing with a housing shortage. We have people complaining about the cost of housing, and we also now have with the interest rates going up.
Yep.
So I guess my concern in this is this only going to make a house much more unattainable for someone? Now, I think if you look, I think most of us who have bought a house, when you're at a stage when you're buying your first house, even, people will mortgage to the extent
Yeah.
that they can afford to get the
Yeah.
house they want. So if we're now adding a 5% or up to 2%, could we be making?
Well, is this, I guess the way I interpret it, maybe I'm wrong, is that it allows, so the real estate transfer tax, the real estate tax is what it is, but it allows to take up to 2% of that existing tax and shuttle it to for houses selling over $1 million and shuttle a portion
But
of
it's
that.
still, the buyer has to pay that. That's the tax the buyer is going to pay.
So this is over and above?
Yes.
Oh, it's not, okay, so.
So
that
this is
wasn't-
additional cost. So that's the
Yeah,
concern I
okay,
have.
Okay, I didn't interpret it that way, so
Okay.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought
no.
it was within the existing, whatever the tax would be, it allows a municipality to slice off up to 2% of that.
Yeah,
and put
no,
it
this
into a
would be on
fund.
top of the, so this adds another fee, so, so,
Yeah.
you know, look, I understand the
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
And it's going back to the local community, and it's up to
Mm.
them if they want to adopt it, but,
I'd rather see my version. Take a portion of what the state is getting and shuttle that back, not
well,
over and above.
that might be more receptive to everyone, but, so this is a question, the only question I have.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because I was like, oh, this is interesting, and I'll have to talk to our assessor, John, about it, but, I see that meeting a lot of resistance.
No,
All right.
and you can sit back and say, well, it's $1 million.
Yeah.
That's, someone's wealthy. But then again, $1 million isn't what it used to be a few years ago.
No,
And
yeah.
if you're borrowing money for that house with the 8% interest now,
Yep. Yeah.
does that make that house now
Yeah.
unaffordable?
Well, and homes are in many cases, at least this is what I hear all the time from residents, it's my greatest asset.
Yeah.
And when I sell it, I want to reap the benefit of having been here in Westboro and supported the tax base. And when I sell it, I want to be able to, I should be able to get the maximum benefit from that.
Yeah.
And I get it. I do.
And you think about, all right, so you're going to say, well, it's $1 million. Okay.
Well, yeah,
You
then they have
start
to pay
going-
capital
you-
gains on it and everything
Well, but then you
else.
go from Westboro and continue further east.
Yep.
That $1 million, you get condos for $1 million.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right.
So this
right.
is going to have a big
Yeah,
impact.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. All right. Well, on that note, it's almost time to turn the oven on and get the turkey thawed and all that.
I'm going to start, what do they call it, starving myself for the next day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you have to enjoy it, right?
Well, that's just
Okay.
so I have time so I can build up my appetite.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you one question on the fly, since it's a season of we have so much to be thankful for. What are you thankful for or grateful for?
That everyone's happy and healthy, and my kids home for the holiday.
Nice. Nice.
Yourself?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm excited to be with family. I'm excited that my parents are doing well, given their age and some of their health complications, and just very, very lucky in all aspects of life. And
Good.
I hope for peace, and I hope for
There's a lot of things we can hope for.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm blending hope and
Yeah.
gratitude, but I hope for happy family conversations around the Thanksgiving table in all homes.
Yeah.
So
The one last other thing
Yeah.
I hope for is I got to pick my daughter up at 1 o'clock today to bring her home. So
Nice.
hopefully there'll be no traffic.
no, Trevor. Okay, yeah. Well, that yeah.
So,
I don't know about that one. I think we might have a better chance at peace. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Anyway, happy Thanksgiving.
thank you. Happy
you so
Thanksgiving.
much.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you.
Excellent. And we'll be right back with our town manager. Hi, and welcome back. I'm joined by our town manager, Christy Williams. Christy, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy almost Thanksgiving.
Yes,
Yeah. So you have a couple updates for our audience today?
Sure. So just a quick update on the community center. We're continuing to complete our due diligence. So we had said that due diligence period ends November 30th, so that's coming up. We've gotten a lot of those reports back, so working through that. And then also just negotiating some of the agreements that we had talked about before: indemnification, reciprocal easement agreement, common area maintenance. So really still continuing to work through that, understanding that it's really ultimately will still be up to the board whether or not they move forward with that purchase.
Right, right. Well, it's been a great process so far, and lots to consider. Just in full disclosure, I'm one of the individuals was identified by the board to work with Christy on negotiating that. I'm working with that on with Alan Edinburgh, and obviously we bring that back to the full board for consideration. So,
Yeah.
so that is moving forward, and appreciate Grossman Development's collaborative
Yep,
approach in this.
definitely.
So that's good. And
So I just also wanted to talk about Youth and Family Services. I
Okay.
gave an update at the November 14th meeting to the board. It's something that we've sort of been talking about but not gotten very specific about. So just to sort of get back to the beginning,
Yep.
Our current Westboro Youth and Family Services has two part-time counselor positions, a full-time director position, and then also a full-time administrative assistant. And the director and one of the counselor positions has been vacant for several months. So the director, I think, maybe 10 months. The counselor, a little bit longer than that. However, we've been really lucky to have a retired former employee come back and help us out, which has been really great.
Sure.
So thanks to Bethita Schumann for doing that.
Yeah.
But we have had a really difficult time just attracting candidates, and that really seems to be the environment in the mental health community in terms of trying to get people in that have those credentials.
demand is huge. Not
Yeah.
enough in just there are not enough qualified, licensed individuals that
Right.
that are needed.
Yeah.
And part of the challenge too, right? In a municipality, the compensation sometimes is not what maybe private entities can offer, although the benefits working in a municipality
Sure.
are
Yeah.
great, but sometimes people kind of decide otherwise, or
Well,
they want a more kind of intensive clinical setting, or any number
Sure.
of reasons.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, and then just sort of mixing the municipal government piece
Yeah.
with the mental health space. It's not necessarily what these individuals anticipated.
Yeah, not intuitive
Yeah.
sometimes. Like what? Yeah.
And so we've had a really difficult time.
Yeah.
We've had a couple interviews, just hasn't worked out.
Sure.
So we tried to get creative about how we would offer these services, because they're really, really important. As you just mentioned, the demand is really high, especially following COVID. And so we've looked around at some of the other communities around us, and we found that in Shrewsbury, Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, which is not a department of the town, is actually a nonprofit that contracts with the town. And so we've had a lot of meetings with them.
The town of Shrewsbury.
The town, yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of meetings with them to try to understand their model and their interest, and they're really interested in being a partner with Westboro to try to work through this. So they would, if it were to move forward, they would provide clinical services through Westboro Youth and Family Services. They're actually looking to change their name, and they actually already provide mental health services through several school districts. So it's not that they've only ever been in Shrewsbury.
Right.
And so we're working through how that would all work. I'm framing it as a hybrid approach, because they would provide clinical services, and then we would retain one position in the town that would do more resource coordination and outreach. And so that's new for them too. And so we're all working together to try to make this work. And when I say all of us, it's police, school have been involved, board members, the staff of Youth
Youth
and Family
Commission.
Services, Youth Commission. Yep. So we're all trying to work together, because we know that the need is there, and we want to meet it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And this potentially creates some. We know there are additional needs in the community, but we haven't been able to meet those, as you said. Although we're doing our very best to do that, and we do have different resources that we connect people to. So even if we don't have a clinician available, there are. I would encourage folks to still call.
yes, definitely.
So
definitely.
and certainly those in crisis, are handled with the attention that they need, and but this creates to me an opportunity for additional capacity.
Yes.
And to me, as a select board member, this is aligned with some of the other work we've done. Animal control officer, where we have sort of a collaborative approach. It's a different model,
Yeah.
But where we've charged you to look for creative ways and innovative ways to address some of the needs. So it's different, and we have a long-standing department, Youth and Family Services. Do you know how long it's been?
I don't. I know a very long time.
Way before
Yeah.
me, way before
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
change can be hard. So, I mean, I think that from the public's perspective, understanding that there are lots of discussions, there have been a lot of collaborative meetings between Westboro staff and
Yep.
Shrewsbury Youth and Family, and those conversations will continue. But we need a solution to the problem.
We do.
Or
Yeah.
the challenge,
Yep.
I guess.
And another thing that I hadn't mentioned is Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, because of their model, they have sort of depth of experience.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of counselors available. We would have counselors dedicated
Sure.
to Westboro. They also have a very robust internship program, which really creates that pipeline
Yes.
that we certainly don't have
Yeah.
here, and
Yeah.
why I think we're struggling to fill some positions.
Yeah, sure. Well, and because it is, as a nonprofit, this is their area of focus. This is
Yep.
what they do. Whereas
Exactly.
in the town, it's one of many things that
Exactly.
the town does. Yeah.
Yep.
So good.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so no kind of firm timelines or up that you can share at this point. Is that fair to say?
Nothing firm,
Yeah.
but to your point, I think we really want to find a solution, and if this is the right solution, then we want to move it forward. But we have invited folks from Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services to meet the board in a public meeting, which would be November 28th.
Okay.
So folks should tune into that if you're
Okay.
interested in hearing more about Shrewsbury Youth and Family, or if you are interested in the tax classification hearing, which is also happening on Tuesday.
Right.
So,
So two really important topics, and again, those are you can attend the meeting on November 28th, which is a Tuesday at 6 p.m. If you can't attend, you can always watch it thanks to our friends at Westboro TV. So, Christy, thank you very much. One question for you: what are you thankful for? What are you grateful for as we head into Thanksgiving? You can't say food.
I can't say
So-
food. Okay, well, all right. No, I'm extremely grateful for my family and our community. I think thankful for all the support that we have here in Westboro to do all the things that we want to do.
Yeah, we are. We have a great community. I was actually I was in a conversation with someone yesterday, and talking about some of the different things going on, and this person is in Colorado, and they're like, "Wow, it sounds like you have a really interesting community, and how people
Yes.
come together." And I said, we do. I said, I'm sure there are other communities that have similar, but there is something unique. So
Definitely.
it takes a village. So
True.
anyway, with that, I want to wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving. Hopefully you'll take this and you'll play it during, just after your Thanksgiving meal. I mean, what better way to celebrate? But in all seriousness, wishing you all the best. I hope you're surrounded by love, family, friends, and things that make you happy. And thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode of the 01581 Let's Talk.